we thought we'd look at the last few, or pretty much every Nintendo console and handheld sale ever, and kind of predict how we think this thing's going to do and where it's going to sit. So play along at home if you think if the Switch is going to outsell these old Nintendo systems, these old handhelds and consoles. So let's take a look at some sales and history of Nintendo stuff.
So Nintendo Switch, 2.74 million.
Yep.
Ooh, let's just compare that for a second.
Yeah.
The Wii U, in its lifetime, correct?
Yeah.
The Switch came out last month.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Wii U had a strong first month, as most Nintendo things do. Nintendo diehard fans get into it. After that, around month 2, the world knew that the Wii U was tanking. We just knew. The sales were dead. There was nothing really coming out for a while. Lego City Undercover was like one of the biggest things we were looking forward to, which admittedly is a cool game, but not really like a move thousands and millions of systems off the shelves. So the Wii U was kind of dead in the water, and that was it, which is why we're seeing success of the stuff like Mario Kart 8 getting moved over to Nintendo Switch and knocking it out the park.
Yeah.
So let's be totally honest. The Switch will outsell the Wii U.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to do that.
Probably, I would say almost by the end of the year.
I think if these things started exploding like the Galaxy Note thing did, I think it would still outsell the Wii U. Just gonna say it.
Wow.
It will. Coming up next. Wow. Okay, so here's a tougher one to beat, right? This is the Nintendo DS, 154.02 million.
Yep.
This is Nintendo's, now we've seen their worst selling system of all time. This is their best. A lot of people don't know that. They think it's the Nintendo Wii. It's actually the DS. Through all its iterations, like you said, that weird version we got at the beginning that looked like a messed up layer cake.
Now, does this include the 2DS?
No. So
Okay.
the 2DS is part of the 3DS.
Okay.
It's confusing.
So this includes everything up until DSi Lite?
DSi, DS XL, the DS Lite.
Okay,
that
so
whole
anything
family.
that didn't ever have 3D with that first chipset. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything that didn't have new 3D or 2D in it is part of the 154.02 million, which is kind of an amazing number. Like, and why did that work? Exactly. Let's dig into it. Aunts, moms, grandmothers, grandfathers, people bought this thing. Lapsed gamers, they bought, they bought like things like Tetris. They bought things like Nintendogs. They bought Brain Age. I have an aunt who still plays Brain Age every day. Which is crazy. It's crazy. Like, why? She's like,
Also,
I gotta do my puzzles.
The use of
Sudoku.
the pencil and thing, like I think that was very non-threatening for people.
Yeah.
You know, like there's something to be said for like a weird little boomerang thing with buttons on it, but to be like, oh, it's like a pen, you touch the buttons. And,
Why else?
Yeah.
These.
Yeah.
Not really readily available at the time. This was pre-smartphone market saturation. If you wanted a handheld device with a touchscreen, this was pretty much one of the first ones out the jump.
Yeah.
There was like Palm Pilots and stuff, but those didn't take off.
Yeah. Then of course.
So I don't think the Nintendo Switch is going to outsell the DS line. I don't think it will. I think it'll do really well, but I don't know about that.
Unless they cut the price to like $100, which why would they do that? That's
now
crazy.
let's look at this old favorite. One of my favorite things I had in college, not alcohol, but they did go hand in hand. The GameCube. The GameCube was adorable. It came in a bunch of different candy-coated colors. Had a little like purse handle you could bring anywhere, and funny buttons, and that weird nipple.
Yeah.
It was great. It was great. Smash Brothers, like awesome games with this thing. Time Splitters were great on here. Tons and tons of million sellers. It sold way less than the PS2 at the time because the PS2 was basically, let's be honest, a Trojan horse DVD player.
Yep.
Sold pretty much neck and neck with the Xbox. I believe comparatively over its life, the Xbox ended up selling a little bit more. A cool thing happened with the Nintendo GameCube. Sold a lot out the gate. Had a big spike when it came to stuff like Smash Brothers and Pikmin and Mario Sunshine and all that stuff. When the GameCube dropped to $99, the charts went like this, down to this, back up to this again. So the GameCube actually spiked considerably. So the Nintendo Switch is selling really strong right now, but in a couple of years, when it's hit that point where it's like 2DS price, when you can get a Nintendo Switch for $150 with a game bundled in, like Mario Kart, that thing is going to clean up.
Yeah.
It's going to clean up.
Because moms.
Because of moms. So I think the Nintendo Switch will outsell the GameCube. Why? Because it's both a handheld and a console. I think it's going to crush it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to beat the GameCube, and I love the GameCube, so I'm sorry to say. Little known fact, the GameCube did not sell as well as the N64. I think the N64 had a worse library, it had worse third-party games, but it had some damn good classics. It had Ocarina of Time, it had the first Smash Brothers, it had Super Mario 64, it had goddamn GoldenEye.
Yeah.
This thing ruled, it had Perfect Dark. But it only sold 32.93 million.
Less people were playing games then.
Yeah.
That was just less of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's a whole generation like us who've grown up with games, and we're like, yeah, that's worth that money. But
Yeah.
I mean, to people who are like our parents' age, like that looked like a stupid, trivial thing. Like get those boys a personal computer for their
It's true.
school projects.
And honestly, the year the N64 came out, the idea of charging third parties overpriced fees for cartridge-based games when they were making disc-based games on the PlayStation. I mean, stuff like Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, like that's where people were going for their games. Also, that thing was a CD player, right? So again, more Trojan horsing.
Yeah.
N64 did not do that great, but let's keep moving. I think it will outsell the N64. Now, this is where things get tricky. 49.10 million, right underneath where the PlayStation 4 is right now, is the Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo, one of the greatest consoles ever made, hands
crazy.
down.
That's
just,
nuts.
Just gorgeous. I love this little thing. Do you think the Nintendo Switch can outsell the Super Nintendo? 50 million.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't know.
I think it can.
You think so?
I think it can.
They start putting virtual console games from Super Nintendo on there, please.
So once again, during the Super Nintendo time, you had the Super Game Boy and you had the Game Boy, and those things all communicated with each other. Now with Nintendo's handhelds and consoles consolidated into one thing, I'm not going to talk about the new 2DS, 3DS, Switch, XL, whatever the hell they're calling that thing. Where the Switch is right now, I think it has a chance to topple the Super Nintendo. But let's keep going. The NES, the originator, 61.91 million, close to 62 million sold worldwide, had 2 iterations, the top-loading one and the fatback, which many of us blew in as children. Too many games to remember counting, right? This thing sold millions last year when they shrunk it, and then they stopped selling it.
Yeah, this was the first modern game console.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, absolutely. Can it beat this? I think it can. I think it can. I think it can. So here's the thing, though. Like lifelong to date. Now PS4 is at like what 50, 55 million right now, and moving up every single day. Still selling more. I think it can get up there. I think
I think you're right. Yeah.
I think the PS4 is going to sell around 75 million when all is said and done.
Well, that's going to be tricky because at what point does it stop? Does the PS4? We've already seen like the PS4 and the PS4 Pro.
Yep.
Are we going to see continual kind of iterative versions of it? Are we going to see that with the Switch?
I don't know.
We don't know.
We'll see.
So,
We'll see what like sort of the Scorpio shakes out of Sony this fall, right?
Yeah.
Next.
That sounds so menacing.
It does sound menacing.
Scorpio shakes out of Sony.
Next, the Wii. This thing sold 101 million. It's their best-selling home console. I don't think this will do Wii numbers. I have a feeling Nintendo wants it to, though. It's going to get there. Mario Kart on the Wii sold 35 million units. It was the best-selling Mario Kart to date. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe launched on Switch last week. It is the fastest-selling Mario Kart ever. So momentum-wise, maybe?
You know, if you look at it, though, the Switch is, at its core, a cross between a Wii. It's got the little wiggle things for party games, and the DS. It's portable. You take it with you. So maybe that's it. You know, maybe that's it.
And I think last, what do we got here? The 3DS. Yeah, 59.79 million. As you can see, you probably don't remember the 3DS looking like this, but this is the 3DS I bought at launch. Not very comfortable, kind of cumbersome, very terrible battery life. But there it is. You know, good things come in small packages. Their handhelds have iterated and evolved over the years. I think it can beat the 3DS. I do think so. So that's it. Tell us what you think. Where do you think the Switch will sit in handheld sales and console sales, all these other things?
Where do you classify it?
Yeah, where do you classify it?
Yeah.
Man. Oh, hi there. I heard you liked our Nintendo Switch video here on Up at Noon. Well, did you know we also did a video where we talked about the stuff in the old Zelda games that we like better than Breath of the Wild, and we interviewed a real dairy farmer to see how the 1-2 switch milking game compares to the thing he does with his hands. It's this. To get that milk. Up at Noon, every Thursday, noon, IGN, Twitch, YouTube, etc.